続いての講演者は、仏光大学公共事務学系教授、張中勇先生にご講演いただきます。
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Before my presentation, let me take this opportunity to express my appreciation for the invitation and hospitality of the organizing committee. I'm afraid I have to give my presentation in English. Hopefully next time I can do it in Japanese. In our previous section, we have heard three wonderful and very comprehensive presentations about China, about Taiwan, and about Japan or local Okinawa areas. My topic would be concentrated on a kind of related and very important aspect of the comprehensive disaster management. That is CIP, critical infrastructure protection. I would like to introduce and explore the relations and interconnection between these two ideas, CIP and disaster management, which I think they share very commonality and can be regarded as two sides of one coin. This is the structure of my presentation today. I have a paper, so if you want to have a further understanding of interest, and you can go to my paper. The first part, I think from our previous presentation, we can see very clearly today's security environment is very complex and very dynamic. Even though we do not have a threat of a big war or regional war, but we can see the non-traditional or non-conventional security threats, both mankind or natural disasters, are on the rise in the past 20 years. We don't talk about the 9/11 terrorist attack. We just look at the natural disasters, typhoons, tsunamis, earthquakes in this region, which will have our very serious attention and concentration on this topic. That's why the idea and the practice of disaster management and CIP come in, especially considering the scale and and seriousness of those natural disasters or the man-made disasters. Sometimes foreign assistance, relief assistance are considered necessary, not only in the case of the earthquake in China, Sichuan, and also the 2008, the typhoon floods in Myanmar, and also in Taiwan, also in Japan 2 years ago, we all require some kind of appropriate foreign assistance to come to our aid. And the CIP and disaster management, as I said, is kind of coordinated. It's stressed the importance of coordinated, holistic, and systematic policy response and effort to deal with the disasters. And its main purpose to raise the resilience against those disasters should it occur. And we have to well prepare and to prevent and to manage those disasters. In my second part of the presentation, as you can see in my paper, that CIP, it will go back briefly to the history of development of this idea. It came from United States in the late 1988, and they proclaimed by the government policy, and they codified in law 2001 Patriot Act, and 2003 they further broadened, and now the range of the critical infrastructure sectors in the United States has been broadened to 18, which is the largest one in the world compared to most other European countries, 10 to 12. So in this case, United States would be a kind of good example because long history and very comprehensiveness of the CIP for our consideration. The importance that of the CIP can be understood by the impact of those disasters if we do not carefully, effectively manage those consequences. Our security, our national economic security, national public health, sometimes you have a health security threat, or the national defense will be jeopardized as a result. And right here, let me go back. Do I have? Okay. Yes. Here I borrow the idea from the National Infrastructure Protection, NIIP, the plan from United States. This is a very simple and very easy, simple and very concise diagram of so-called risk management. Both CIP and disaster management all borrow the idea from the risk management. You can go from the first setting the goal and objective, and because it's very important idea for the first step, from the first steps. When we talk about disaster response and management, we always come to the first priority job. That's to help, to save lives, to help people. But other than that, what should we emphasize? Should we pay attention to maintaining the minimum function of the government? Otherwise, no one will go to rescue. Should we keep the water and or the electricity supplies, because which are so vital to any disaster response operations? Do we need to maintain some kind of transportation, either inland, at the sea, or even on air, which is also important for any evacuation or the relief material transportation purpose. And we also need to have some kind of information and communication technology in order to transfer or collect any disaster information. Which means while we are trying to save lives, we need a lot of other infrastructure, facilities, network, assets, systems to support our disaster response activities. So while we're saving lives, how do we make sure that we have that kind of support? How do we make sure that support will be in place even though there is a strong or serious disaster occurred? So setting the goal objective. What's our goal objective? We cannot set it too high or too unrealistic. It should be reasonably and realistically achievable. And second one, we can go, after that, I go to the next page. Setting the goal and objective. So what's our goal objective? And after that, we identify assets. We cannot protect every asset because there are too many without our limited resources. So the first step is to identify that system networks, and we will have to assessing their risk according to a very simple formula. That's the so-called risk is a function of the consequence, threat, and the vulnerabilities. So put those three things together. We have to assess the risk. We will allocate our resources to those assets or systems networks with highest risk. So that's the purpose of assessing risk. So you have to do that prior to disaster occurred, and we have to effectively and reasonably allocate the disaster management resources to those sectors. Then we prioritizing our jobs, and we implementing protective programs. Because the difference between regions and sectors, and because of geographic difference, we have to come up with different programs for different regions. For example, inland is so different from those offshore island geographically speaking. So to protect offshore islands, to maintain the transportation, communication with offshore islands would require a different kind of protective program from those used in inland areas. Because offshore island, you do not have a serious problem of mudslide or landslides, but your major problem would be the difficulties of the transportation, land, maritime transportation or air transportation. So we implement protect program and resilience strategies to strengthen the function and strengthen the firmness of those infrastructure facilities networks in order to stand against the consequence of the disasters. And that's the one we have to measure in the effectiveness, so we can come up any idea like where and when we should make improvement. Here is the idea of the risk management. It's like a loop, as you can see. In the meantime, so generally speaking, we all know that mitigation, preparation, prevent, and preparedness and response are 4 major pillars of disaster management. So we have to go from the peacetime, disaster-free period development, and you have to do some prevention. You have to develop organizational establishment. You have to develop in your response capacity, and you have early warning. You need a lot of scientific analysis and data collection in order to give you warning assistance, such as to predict, right now we even can predict the occurrence of an earthquake, not to mention typhoon. So that gives you a very precious time to respond. But disaster still occurs, so you need to have emergency response, and after that, rehabilitation and reconstruction. It seems to be endless loop. So every disaster occurs will bring us some lessons to be taken, and to be better prepared for the next disaster to come. And this, we can see many and different, a lot of diagrams or kind of the pictures about the disaster management. They all talk about the mitigation, prevention, preparedness, response. They all talk about how do we recovery, response, and so on and so forth. And I think the content of this have been quite well done by the 2 presentations, so I will kind of skip that one. However, I would like to focus on this point. The first one, the roles and responsibility of all partners, regional partners or international partners, or even though the agency within the regions, the role and responsibility have been clearly defined, coordinated, and put in practice. I think in Japan, in Taiwan, and China, we kind of have done a quite good job in this way. But if we look deeper into the question, this issue, sometimes it's easy to make it look good on paper, but you need to have more exercise in order to find out the real problems. Sometimes it's easier said than done. Second, disaster management capability and capacity should be regarded as a part of national or regional capacity. It's our effort, national effort to build up this kind of capacity against the disaster. It's not a local business. So sometimes central government will consider the disaster occur in local levels. So it should be taken care of by the local government only. However, considering the scale and the seriousness of the disaster in the future, no one can predict. 2 years ago, the tsunami and earthquakes in eastern part of Japan will give us a very good lesson that it's not local business, it's a national business. And we need more training exercise. So I'm very honored to be invited to, we have opportunity to see a major exercise yesterday about the oil leak in the seaport area, and it's very impressive. That's how Japanese react to that kind of scenario. And we need to some kind of mechanism based on the interagency coordination, and so PPP, public-private partnership. It's the core value or core part of the CIP. How do you have the cooperation between the public and private? I do think it's easier for the Japanese to do so. The public, the government can work quite closely with the private. But I don't think it's the case in other parts of the world. In Europe, in America, they consider it's a major issue. How do you have later on I have the problem of the trust. How can people trust the government with the confidential news, the information, or we can trust the government will come to our aid in real time, in time. So we need to have inter-agent coordination and the PPP. Sustained focus. After the disasters, government sometimes will so busy with daily issues. Sometimes they will not look at the recovery or stress the importance of the recovery. However, I think that's most important. Not only is important to take care of the victims of the disaster, but also it's a very good time to make sure that you are well prepared, at least better prepared for the next disaster. And we also need a periodic evaluation and reporting on the progress. That's the one way to make sure that the quality and the quantity of the reconstruction, rehabilitation. And the last one, as Professor Chen in his presentation, Taiwan has done quite a good job in the disaster information technology. So the use of modern technology is very important. Other than communication, we also need to have satellite overhead photograph, and we combine those information and data together in order to better support our disaster response activities. As I said, here now I want to look at some negative side of the CIP and disaster management. The first, to build in the trust. Even though we don't consider, especially Japanese, we not consider the trust between the public and the private, the government and the people is a serious business. But in other parts of the world, it is. And even though that is true, if we look at the issue 2 years ago in the earthquake in eastern part of Japan, the trust between the government and the Tokyo Power Company is also an issue that requires further examination. Can government trust the private electricity government or vice versa? Can community trust the government? That government will always tell the truth. Sometimes government will tell the truth, sometimes they will do otherwise because of other reasons. And the second is the political will. CIP and disaster management are not very popular subject. It requires strong political will and consistent policy action to follow the whole process of the establishment of the whole system. Otherwise, because it takes money, effort, resources to do so, and it will take time to see the result. So from the perspective of politicians, it's not a welcome issue, because they need something to tell people that I have done that, so you have vote for me next time. But CIP and disaster management, it takes some time to build that kind of the project. And that's the ones, as I said in the beginning of my presentation, I think a search for integration of CIP and disaster management is necessary, because there are so much overlappings. In order to avoid duplication of efforts, for example, we need to sign some kind of integration. Here, I would like to take an example what happened in Taiwan under the executive yuan, the cabinet level government. We do have two offices, one for so-called Office for Homeland Security, another is Office for Disaster Preventions. From my personal, I emphasize, from my personal perspective, I do think those two offices should be integrated together in order to make a more effective policy and follow on explanation programs. And I think that the case from Taiwan will also apply to other countries as well. Such a problem will occur. I know my time is quite limited, so I will carry on to the next very important subject here I would like to emphasize. The regional cooperation of the CIP and disaster management in this region, because the characteristics of interdependency and interconnection between the CIS capital. So not only regional, but also international cooperation will be necessary. If we look at what happened in European EU members, transportation and the energy sectors, they link together, they network together, but at the same time, they benefit a lot, but at the same time, they also they bear the risk that a failure of one sector will affect the other sector of the critical infrastructures. Maybe all sectors will be affected as a result. Between Taiwan and Japan, other than the CIP, and we can look at three issues that I propose the maritime transportation, public health, and emergency response service. The third one, as far as I know, emergency response service has been going on and have a very good result. But maritime transportation, public health would also can be the area that we have further cooperation. International experience about this should require the participation from regional partner. And I think it will benefit all if everyone participate and take part in. We can share our experience, we can share our best practice experience, we will benefit together. And so it should be our common expectation effort that gathering a regional partner like this forum. And as far as I know, I think this forum will continue in the future. In continued future, it broadens the scope of participation as well as the subject of discussions. So certainly we will be looking forward to the future progress of this forum. Thank you very much.
張先生、ありがとうございます。